Hey, what's up, guys? Jaden here, and today I want to go through with you some of the things that I wish I knew when I transited to remote work. I think this is really, really useful if I had it when I first started remote working in 2019. Didn't know what I was gonna do, felt a bit lost, so that's why I'm creating this. So if you have already decided that you're gonna transit to remote-based working or working online, I hope this video will be able to help you out, give you some clarity, gives you some expectations that you should have. Yeah, and hopefully you'll be able to go smooth on your remote journey. So yeah, first thing is, regarding the expectations. I think there are a few expectations that would really work if you're going to go over to remote. So here are some. The first one will be fear. When you are, especially if you are doing the first, if you're transiting over to remote working for the first time, taking that first step will be quite scary in a way that you don't know if you're going to fail or not. And that's perfectly fine. So if you feel like there's any kind of fear in you, fear of the unknown, fear of not knowing whether if it's going to work for you, ultimately fear of failure, I think you're pretty normal as anyone who have not tried. If you're trying something for the first time, you're going to feel a little bit of fear, right? So if you do have any kind of like thoughts about whether will you make it, whether will you fail on this journey transiting over to remote, I think this is a normal expectation that you're having. Is perfectly normal for you to feel this way. The next thing is, transiting over to working remotely is actually pretty fun. But if I were to be honest with you, not all days are fun. Most days are fun. And when what I mean by most days are fun, it's, a lot of times when you are working remotely, you're learning a lot of stuff, right? You are learning about, new skills. You're learning about, essentially this journey is new, especially if you have been not working remotely, if you have been working in in an office, in an office setting. Working remotely by itself, it's already going to be a very new experience for you. So most days are fun. However, not all days are fun. And I think this is same for all kind of jobs that you're in. At some point in time, things will feel repetitive, where you're doing the same things again and again. And in a remote setting, it's kind of the same, right? I think with any kind of process that you go through, whether if it's, working remotely or not, as the time goes by, you'll find yourself doing some tasks which are repetitive, right? And sometimes the repetitive stuff, they're not fun, but you still have to go through it, right? So most days are fun, some days are not, and that's pretty normal. And the reason why I have this in here is because you don't want to stop when you feel bored, because some days you are going to feel bored, especially if you're doing things that are repetitive, right? But some days are going to be like that. But just to take note, most days will be fun. And yeah, you enjoy most days. The next thing is it takes time. So I think it's not just for remote working, but I think anything that you want to do on a long time horizon, it takes time. So don't expect yourself to, make it whatever make it means in your world. But don't expect like the first month to take off flying. If it does, it's a bonus. That's awesome. And just expect that it'll take time, right? So how much time does it take? I think there is a formula that which later on in the slide I'll share with you. But yeah, it takes time. Don't rush it. Just know that it's a normal process. That it takes time for you to see, for you to have some kind of success working remotely. And the next thing is, do expect that there'll be a lot of learning opportunities. When you are transiting over to working remotely, I think when I first transited over to working remotely, previously I was, working in just like a normal setting in an office. There are a lot of things that you will learn, especially when it comes to remote working, because I didn't know that working remotely, it's even possible in the first place, where you're getting paid, but you don't have to travel down to the office. You don't have to, take the time to travel back after work. Like, I didn't know that was possible. And when I first transited over to remote working, everything was new to me. And that's why it's exciting, because there's so many things to learn, especially like, let's say if you transited over to working remotely, you'll find yourself having to learn how to manage yourself, which is something that you don't do in a office setting, right? In an office setting, you go to work, there is a time for lunch, there is a time for tea break, there is a clock in time and a clock out time. And essentially you leave that management to whatever the time that has been allocated to you, right? But when you're working remotely, you have to kind of set your own time, and you will need to learn how to set your own time, which timing works for you. And that's why like it's a very it has a lot of like self management, if you will. And that's why like you can get to learn a lot, not just from the role that you're gonna be at, but a lot of self learning about yourself, what makes you motivated, what makes you lazy, and when you're lazy, and you kind of have to confront it. Whereas in an office setting, you're just going through the motion. Even though, if you're aware enough, I'm pretty sure you can also do a lot of self-learning in a office setting. But with regards to remote work, you have to do it, because it's you don't have a choice, right? If you don't learn how to manage yourself, if you don't learn how to work with yourself, by yourself, it's not gonna work in a remote setting. So that's kind of like the expectations that you should have when, I guess, in this juncture, you already decided that you're gonna move to remote work. Yeah. So that's kind of the expectations that you should have. And this is kind of it's a formula that I wished I had when I first started to transit over to remote working. And it's the faster you learn, the faster you progress. And you only learn by doing. So you're gonna learn a lot of theory, you're gonna read a lot of stuff, but you don't actually learn until you do something. And the reason why is because you'll get to know whether the theory works. And if it doesn't, you have to find a solution around that. And that's why like the faster you learn, the faster you progress. Now, I've put here progress, not reach your goal. It's because reaching your goal, it's kind of the destination, and everybody's goal is different. Your goal could be like making a certain amount of money per month. That could be your goal. But don't let your destination take away the joy of the journey, right? So the faster you progress, meaning to say, you know, you are essentially on this path towards your goal already. And how fast you complete that path, it's gonna be at the pace of how fast you learn, right? And I've put here, the faster you progress, not the faster you reach your goal. Because some people's goals are like, like make $1 million a year, for example. And yeah, so that's gonna take a way longer, right? But if you want to reach there faster, no matter what your goal is, you have to learn, and you only learn by doing. So if there's a formula for me to kind of like determine whether you will reach your goal faster or not, that's how I'll go about it. So yeah, the next thing is, if you are transiting over to online work, working remotely, I think one of the most important things, if not the most important things, is you have to find skills. You have to acquire some kind of skills that revolves around remote work, that allows you to work remotely. And those skills usually falls in this different buckets, but these are not the only skills that you need to acquire. So for example, graphic design, you can do it remotely. Web design, online sales, where you are, doing sales, where you're doing sales either for a company selling their products, presentation, doing kind of proposals, demos, and things like that. And online marketing. So online marketing is the route that I've went into. I started with web design, and then I shifted over to online marketing, and then now I'm currently doing both. But you have to acquire some kind of skills that allows you to work remotely. So for example, if you have a skill set currently in sales, where you're doing sales, to transit over to remote work, you just have to learn how to sell it online, right? So if you have marketing experience, now you just need to know how to, essentially use what you know and change it to something online, right? So if it's marketing, then online marketing is actually not as complicated as you would think it is. And I don't mean to simplify things, but I think that is the easiest way to think about it. If you want to work remotely, you have to have some kind of skills that is able to allow you to do your work remotely, right? So yeah, essentially the skills that you need to acquire are online based skills. Things that requires you to, be on the computer. If it's like, if you are an assistant, for example, see whether you can do something related to a virtual assistant, because a virtual assistant virtually means it means that you're doing things virtually, right? You don't have to be in person. So there's a lot of online based skills that you can find. The main thing here is you need to acquire these skills, right? So that is if you want to transit over to working remotely. And the most important thing here is pick something and start. When you do research, you're going to find a lot of options that you can choose from. Some of the options I've listed above, but these are not the only options. There's a lot of options out there. The main thing here is you want to pick something and you want to start, right? So when I first started, I went into web design. It wasn't, well, I had, back then I had no choice, but this is an advice that I will give to myself if I were to restart over, right? So if I were to restart over, I will pick something that I'm the most interested in, whether if it's sales. So if you're interested in sales, do something related to online sales. If you're interested in marketing, do something related to online marketing. If you are interested in, I don't know, like human resource, for example, do something related to, HR that can be done online, right? But the main thing here is you want to pick something and you want to start, right? Don't think too much about, which option is best, because there's no best. You're just going to pick something that you're most interested in for now, and then you're going to start. Because along the way, you'll find if it's something that you really want to do. And if it's not, then at least by starting, you will eliminate that choice and you will eliminate what you don't want to do, right? So pick something and start. The next thing that you would need to do after acquiring these skills is you need to monetize, and that's how you actually make money from the skills that you acquire, right? So there are a few ways that you can monetize, and they essentially fall under two buckets. The first one is working for others. The second one is you work for yourself. So working for others, it will mean to say, it's pretty straightforward. You're taking that skills and you are using that skills for a company, right? So for example, if you think of like acquiring a skill in, let's say, online sales, then what you would do is you will work for a company that is very focused on selling online, right? So that could be software, that could be products that are based online, whether if it's SaaS, whether if it's like physical software where they have to install on natively on the computer. Doesn't matter, right? But essentially what you're doing is you're using your skills and you're working for another company. So working for others. The next one is working for yourself. So you can take that skill and you can provide that skill by starting your own business, by being a freelancer. And essentially you're still working for others. But in terms of like the context, you can provide a lot more of your skills to a lot more people if you're working for yourself. Whereas if you're working for others, if you're working for a company, you're only working for that company, right? But if you're working for yourself as a freelancer, for example, you can provide that to many projects. You can work on many projects, many different kind of clients and things like that. So the way of how you monetize is actually very simple. You either work for yourself or you work for another company, right? If you're working for other companies, it's going to be very, very straightforward. But if you're working for yourself, there's a few routes you can take. You can be a freelancer. You can start your own business as a consultant or as an agency. And yeah, that's essentially how you monetize, right? So once you have the expectation right, go and acquire a skill. Once you have acquired a skill, or while you're acquiring skill sets, the next step you'll do is you will think of how to monetize the skill set that you're acquiring, right? And if it's, I just want to list down here some of the things to consider when you're working for others versus when you're working for yourself, right? Because I've done both. And for working for others, which means like you're working under a company, usually for guidance, you will have some kind of direct guidance either from, your managers or the CEO or the founder, depending on how big of the company is, right? But generally, you will have somebody to guide you, especially like if you are not sure what to do, if you meet roadblocks, you're going to have like guidance directly. Most of the time, you have provided resources. Resources meaning it can be in the form of tools, software. Again, guidance could also be one of the resources, mentors, any kind of resources. Usually they will be provided. Training, for example, usually will be provided by companies. And some of the I'm not sure if this is a con. I don't want to say that it's a con, but you will have lesser freedom in terms of, adhering to the hours of the work, adhering to the requirements of the work, So in a sense, it's having lesser freedom in that way. And with that, there's also lesser risk because, you're going to get paid on a routine, whether if it's weekly or monthly, you're going to get paid, right? Unless you're working as a sales commission, right? Where you're working off commissions, then that will be more risk. But the product that you're selling, you don't have to worry about changing the product because the product is already there. So lesser risk in that sense, because if you are doing something for yourself, if you're creating a product for yourself, you risk, and there's more risk involved because when you change the product, you're not sure whether if it's going to work, right? So overall, there's generally less risk while you're working for others. And if you're working for yourself, some of the expectations that you should have is you will need to have a lot of self-guidance. Now, meaning to say you will have to find kind of like your own mentors. You will have to look for answers on your own, and you don't have that kind of like direct guidance as compared to working in a company, right? And this brings to the second point, which is you need to have resourcefulness, which means kind of similar to the same point of having self-guidance. You kind of have to find your own solutions. If you encounter a roadblock, you have to look online, you have to ask people what is the recommended solutions, and you kind of have to be that self-reliant, self-sufficient person, right? Because there's nobody to guide you unless you look for that somebody, okay? And as compared to working for others, you'll have more freedom. More freedom in the sense that you will have more freedom towards, like, if you're creating a product, you have more freedom to decide what kind of products you want to sell, how you want to sell the product, what processes you want it to be, and essentially, what time to work, what time you're taking on calls, and things like that, right? So you essentially have more freedom in a sense. And with that comes higher risk, right? So like I mentioned earlier, there will be a higher risk of you doing something that doesn't work. And the risk is just more because your responsibility, it's way more as compared to, when you're just working for a company, right? So there'll be high risk. Now, that doesn't mean that, when I put like working for others and working for yourself, it's not so much about deciding which one is better, because both have its pros and cons. And these are just some of the expectations that I think you can have, and hopefully that will be able to help you decide which option you want to take, because everybody is different, right? Everybody's risk tolerance is different. The way of how you work versus how I work will be different. But having this, I guess, will be able to allow you to kind of like have more knowledge before you decide whether you are going to work for yourself, whether working for yourself is more suitable for you, or whether working for others will be more suitable for you. There's no right or wrong here. Okay. And after you have, kind of like decided whether you're working for yourself or whether you're working for others, the next thing that you need to do is you need to kind of like put in the reps, right? Similar to, exercising, similar to working out, you have to put in the reps, right? And you don't just put in the reps. You don't just work out for a day and expect to see, any kind of progress, any kind of results. You usually do it for like a month, 2 months, and things like that. So in a sense of working remotely, if you have chosen to work for others, right, then putting in the reps would mean to say, put in more job applications, apply for more jobs, apply for more online jobs, remote-based jobs. And the good thing about working remotely is you don't necessarily have to apply jobs that is within your country. You can apply jobs in companies that are just basically looking for, they are offering remote roles, right? So let's say, for example, if I'm in Singapore, I can apply for a job that's based in US. I can apply for a job anywhere as long as it's remote, right? So apply for jobs, not just one day, not just 2 days, but on a consistent basis. You have to put in the reps here. And, don't just look for one portal, look for multiple portals that are offering or they are listing remote jobs. So that's for job applications. Similar for, if you're working for yourself, if you're pitching some kind of your services or any kind of products that you're selling, you want to, put in more proposals, submit more proposals, message more people, DM more people. Essentially, whatever that reps is that makes sense for you, you have to put in the reps. Because if you don't, then it's probably not going to work out. Yeah, you have to put in the work. And going back to the earlier point that I made, the faster you learn by doing, the faster you progress. So, and the keyword here is you need to do. Yeah, there's no way about it. Having this expectation before you start remote working will, I think, will set you in a point of what is normal. This is normal. Okay. And then the last thing that you want to do over here is you want to learn and you want to optimize. So while you're putting in the reps, you'll need to take a proactive approach in learning what worked and what didn't. So for example, if you're submitting a lot of job applications and you notice that, nobody is getting back to you, then you could learn something about, maybe your job or your resumes is not well done, your cover letters are not well done. And what you will do then is you will optimize your, either your cover letters, your resumes, and then see whether does that increase the chance of responses from, people who are hiring. And if you find that, hey, you're getting a lot of responses going through to the interviews, but you're not getting hired, then what you will need to learn is you need to ask yourself questions like, what do you need to learn here? Is it because you didn't present yourself well enough during the interviews and things like that, right? But the main thing here is you need to learn what didn't work and you need to optimize it. And once you optimize it, either the way of how you're presenting yourself and things like that, then you'll go back to the cycle of learning, because you need to find out whether if something that you applied, whether if it's working. And if it's not, then you will need to optimize again. So this entire process just keep going on and around in circles, and that's kind of like how life works actually. Yeah. So similarly, if you're working for yourself, if you submit a lot of proposals and nobody's getting back to you, then the same kind of approach comes in, right? Where you are kind of figuring out why you're not getting responses. And if you are getting responses and you're not closing anything, then it could be something related to your closing. And, if you close something and then the customers don't come back for a second time or a third time, then it could be your product or your customer service. The main thing here is to learn, optimize, and this whole cycle just keep repeating itself. So that's about it. If you are transiting over to remote work, don't worry, everything is going to be okay, right? If you follow these steps, if you learn by doing, you will progress, right? So don't worry about, whether something will work out or not. If you learn enough and you stay curious enough, you learn enough, it's going to work out, right? You're going to progress. So I know taking that leap of faith, transiting over to remote work could be scary, but it's going to be a fun journey. So hopefully you like this video, and if you do, leave a comment. Let me know, like, is this helpful? If you are just starting into remote work, what kind of thoughts go through your mind, like your fears, what are you most afraid of? And if you have already transited over to remote work, what's the thing that you didn't expect to learn, right? So let me know in the comment section down below.